Welcome everyone, Christine here with a discussion about Morathi in Total War Warhammer 3 and why secretly she is the most powerful legendary lord of the Dark Elves. Oh yes, we're going down that path. Despite the addition of Mother Astankia over here in a campaign, Mother Morathi is substantially stronger than most other legendary lords in the game because the Dark Elves are one of the best races in Warhammer 3. And since Morathi is the strongest, automatically she is one of the top tier legendary lords in the entire game. Consider this. Morathi starts with the tier 2 provincial capital. Not many people do that to begin with. She also starts with tier 1 barracks that she can easily convert into a tier 2 barracks. All you need to do is get a bunch of willing victims, so to speak, from a battle over here against the Tor Dark Elves. That's the first thing. So what that means is Morathi is in a prime position in her campaign to get access to 2 masters. Because you have 1 hero capacity by default for any hero type, and you'll get an additional one with that tier 2 barracks as the Dark Elf. So you're already in a situation as Morathi where you're going to have 3 heroes in a campaign. That is a significant amount of power. On top of that, you can also add the fact that she has Slaaneshi Corruption. Now that Slaaneshi Corruption is going to come in handy when we're talking about the income that Morathi is going to generate and also the control that Morathi is going to have over her territory. Her Lord effects and special skill tree, well, they certainly get the job done, as in particular the casualties captured post-battle from Tenacious, including the income from post-battle being very useful. What was particularly powerful over here is the minus 30% upkeep for her entire army. But that's not all. She can also recruit sorceresses in all provinces and increase the hero capacity and recruit rank for those sorceresses in her campaign. So Morathi can have a really powerful hero squad available fairly early on in her campaign. The one downside that does exist in her campaign is that she doesn't recruit death hags from a tier 3 settlement as you normally would in a Dark Elf campaign through a structure that would also increase your capacity for K-Knight Assassins. She does still get them from tier 3, but the problem is she can only get K-Knight Assassins from a tier 4 structure. But that trade-off is well worth it. On top of that, let's consider her diplomatic relations situation. You have Mazdamundi to the south, with whom you start with a non-aggression pact. Now, Mazdamundi would be a genuine menace to deal with if you actually had to go down south. Not because Mazdamundi is so powerful, rather because the climate over here in Mazdamundi's territory is unpleasant. So having to deal with Mazdamundi would not be an ideal situation in your campaign. And you can actually make Mazdamundi a really powerful ally to utilize during the course of your campaign. On top of that, the way the campaign is structured, the developers do want you to go towards the Ashen Coast, which in itself is going to give you a significant amount of benefits. Not because you'll take the territory, but because this territory is held by a Minor Skaven faction. There's also some beastmen. So there's a Minor Skaven faction controlling 5 settlements over here between the Ashen Coast and the Iron Sand Desert. Don't know why that bugs out sometimes. And then you'll end up doing the circle over here, Ice Rock Gorge, get to Hag Hole, probably around the same time that the Sisters of Twilight are about to wipe out Hag Hole over here. So you may either confederate these Dark Elves or take Hag Hole yourself. Go against the Sisters of Twilight, take the Witchwood. Now, how does Astankia change this dynamic? Well, not necessarily as much as you might think. In fact, dealing with Astankia might be significantly beneficial in your campaign. The reason is, while Astankia can certainly be very crazy to deal with in the late game if you let her develop, early on she's not necessarily as much of a threat. Yes, she does have a chariot that can shoot while moving, and that can be a nuisance, but you're going to be able to recruit Dark Shards with shields from turn 1, actually. Like, just go over here, deal with this army, sack this, the petrified forest, complete your barracks recruitment, and you will be able to get access to Dark Shards with shields. In fact, I'm just going to do that. Just gonna set this to easy, just to reflect how the actual battle would be. Normally in a campaign, you would want to fight the battles manually. So over here, and you always want to go for enslave as a post-battle option. I do strongly recommend that if you're gonna, that you should fight as many battles as you possibly can in a campaign. And there we go. It is built. We take the settlement, and there we go. Dark Shards with shields. And not just that, but we also can get these 2 masters that are going to add a significant level of power during this campaign. I'd recommend repairing this just to get that growth going. And what you decide to do from this point on, you can go west as the game intends you to do. The way you'd handle that is you take Grey Rock Point with Morathi. On the next turn, you'd also recruit a second army on the next turn in the Petrified Forest. And then on turn 3, you'd force march Morathi. You'd take your army from the Petrified Forest, attack the Tor settlement over here, force march Morathi to support, take Tor, gain control of Titan Peaks within 3 turns. Then move on Iron Spark, while your secondary army starts building up a force. How you want to deal with the Stankia depends on the situation. If you want to be incredibly aggressive, you can certainly take advantage of the sheer amount of money you will have early on in a campaign in order to attack relatively quickly, to build up a secondary army relatively quickly to full power, and also get a Black Arc. To get Black Arc Corsairs. You want to get the balance between Black Arc Corsairs and Dark Shards. And a full stack of Dark Shards and Black Arc Corsairs should be able to deal with the Stankia's force, because the Stankia only has the ability of recruiting cave bats and spider hatchlings early on in her campaign. She won't even have Dakshinas, so she's just going to have a bunch of rubbish in her army that your Black Arc Corsairs and Dark Shards should be able to easily defeat. Maybe get some Dread Spears in your secondary army, and it is certainly possible for your secondary army to be able to achieve success there relatively early on. And what do you do after that? And this is where it gets pretty crazy. Yeah, deal with the Sisters of Twilight, make an alliance with Katep or eliminate Katep, take all of this territory. This territory is very powerful. Clan Karand gives you the layers of Clan Karand for that significant amount of exotic animals and that upkeep for certain monstrous units. You can also get the slave traders' palaces for a significant amount of slaves. And one of the things you can do is rush Ulthuan. This is also where the power that Morathi has in a campaign really comes into play. Because the way you rush Ulthuan is whatever you do Morathi. Like, Morathi isn't necessarily going to be relevant in this. What you do is you build a full stack on a Black Arc, you build a full stack on land, and with those 2 armies, it might push you towards bankruptcy, but with those 2 armies, you take Lothern. That will deprive Tyrion of most of his recruitment, while Noctilus and Akari are still alive. And if you are lucky, and keep in mind luck will play a role in this, you might be able to do so before Alariel is allied with Tyrion, because they don't start allied. Keep in mind that. So if you move quickly enough, or you can take advantage of the diplomatic situation to, say, join a war against Tyrion specifically to avoid having to fight Alariel. One of the important things about this is, one, eliminating Tyrion is really useful, but getting the Shrine of Surian will come with its own benefits, including 100 diplomatic relations with the High Elves, which will nullify the aversion the High Elves feel towards you. One of the biggest problems in a campaign is dealing with the full might of Ulthuan, but that's after Ulthuan unifies. Now, assuming on Legendary, I've never seen Noctilus, or very rarely seen Noctilus and Akari being able to win. And typically speaking, it's some outside force that comes into play. Certainly since Mother Estancia has come into play, I've never seen Ulf-1 fall in a campaign on Legendary. Because Estancia, while she may lose against Morathi, she can certainly hold her own, AI against AI specifically, against Morathi, and she may even beat Morathi in the long game. That Ulf-1 can unify, and once Ulf-1 unifies, Alfarian, Alariel, and Tyrion are such a powerhouse of an alliance that it's very difficult to dislodge them. This is one of the significant advantages of Morathi. She can take all of Ulf-1, make herself an incredibly powerful and potent campaign position, and crucially, while the High Elves really hate the Dark Elves, and you can nullify that through the Shrine of Asuryan, the other factions that exist on the campaign map don't really hate the Dark Elves as much. While the Lizardmen have a -40 aversion, -40 is just kind of at the brink of what is tolerable from a military alliance standpoint. So you can make a powerhouse alliance with people like Mazdamundi, with people like Katep, with other people. It gets pretty crazy. Like, you end up... Like, I've played the Morathi campaign where I allied half the world, and I was really the order-tied, quote-unquote, against the forces of chaos. We were marching full-on Norska. Another benefit of Morathi is because of her climate suitability, she can take Frozen as well. And not just Frozen, but the Chaotic Wasteland as well. So all that you see over here is territory that Morathi can take in her campaign. The only limiting factor is the mountains, but basically from her land over here in southern Nagrov, basically very northern Lustria, you can conquer all of this without any real opposition. And you will have a lot of armies, a powerful economy to back you up in that particular process. And that, all of this, all that I've stated is why Morathi is such an incredibly powerful legendary lord. Don't get me wrong, Malus Darkblade one-on-one and in terms of his dueling capability is exceptional. Malus Darkblade can solo armies, but Malus Darkblade cannot build an empire as quickly and as powerful as what Morathi can do. Because he's stuck over here in the north. Like, if he had a better starting position, things would be different. Morathi, because of her starting position, she has a potential that is unmatched by any other Dark Elven legendary lord. The only legendary lord that's actually better than her, and only in the early game, is Lokir because of his early game potential and his sacking benefit, income from sacking benefit. But Morathi is substantially better in the long term. Financial corruption helps with control, helps with the economy. Her position makes diplomacy significantly more viable, and she eliminates the blob that is Ulf-1 far quicker than anyone else. Because if you prevent this alliance from being formed, or if you strike at it hard and fast early on, you can obliterate it. It's kind of hilarious that you can obliterate Ulf-1 without Morathi having even to step foot in it. Because if you eliminate Lothern and take down Tyrion with secondary armies, that's really an enormous part of the problem. Like, Tyrion is the big issue in Ulf-1, not Alfarian or Alariel. Because if you take out Tyrion, then Nakari gets a freer hand to keep Alariel and Alfarian in check, which is certainly something you can take advantage of. Then you eliminate Nakari, of course, and Noctilus, take their territories, add them to your own, and become unstoppable. Then you conquer the world. And that's why Morathi is one of the top tier legendary lords in Warhammer 3. Costin signing out. Stay tuned for more.